Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. And I hope very much that you got the message that I was starting a little bit late today. More of that in a minute. But for the moment, I'm just going to have a look and make sure that it looks as if I am live. My phone, which I filmed this on, is telling me I'm live, but I can never be absolutely sure until I check on Facebook. So let's have a look and see. Where are we? Find my page and let's have a look, and it looks as if I am live. Hooray. Good. So if you have joined me, thank you very much, and let me know if you can hear and see me okay. I've got a slightly different setup with my camera today. I'm hoping that it's going to give you a little bit better view of my desk, and I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to adjust it okay. I have practiced, but sometimes when you're live, things don't work out the way you think they're going to be. And I'm also hoping that the weather which is coming in from the channel, I think it's from the channel, perhaps it's from the North Sea actually, I haven't checked the wind direction. The weather that's coming in this afternoon is not going to cause us any problems with the internet. The weather forecast for where I live is for force 8 gales this afternoon and through into the evening. The wind has really got up. It's not force 8 yet, it's probably about a force 6. And it's started to rain. We are forecast torrential rain. Now normally when we get a gale like that, it's coming up from the southwest, which is obviously where our prevailing wind comes from in this country. But I'm wondering actually if it's going to be a north one, because the wind's been north-northeast for the last couple of weeks, which is why it's so cold. I can hardly believe that we were sitting here in a 40-degree heat a few weeks ago. It seems almost inconceivable. So I can't tell if there's anybody watching yet. I'm going to carry on. I'm going to assume that everything is fine, and please tell me if it's not. So today's session then is going to be making 3 cards with the same shaped and sized pieces, and I am indebted to Jackie, who gave me the title for the session, which was Every Which Way. I wanted something a little bit snappier, and she came up with it last week, and I certainly couldn't come up with anything better than that, so thank you to Jackie for that. I'm sorry about starting late today. I promised you I would explain why. Well, as you may be able to see behind me, I have even more things piled up than usual. Behind this white sheet here, I usually have the pile of boxes that I pack all my class bits and pieces in. I have a box of 3D projects which I pull out for displays and all sorts of other bits and pieces like that. I've got my filming and sound equipment. Lots of things that are not very appealing to look at, and actually they're quite distracting to look at. I used to just leave it because, you know, this is me, you know me, I don't edit these when I upload them to YouTube. What you see is what you get. And so I wasn't editing my surroundings really either. However, I did think it was very distracting when I started watching myself back. So I now cover it with a white sheet. I think that also helps with the lighting in here actually. It provides a bit more of a reflective surface. However, you may be able to see just there, that is my fridge. I've got a very tall fridge, and what you can't see is, where are we? Over there, beyond the fridge, is my freezer. As you also may know, we've been having work done in the house. It's 9 weeks now, and oh boy, it feels like 9 months. It's only 9 weeks, and actually we haven't had to have anything structural done, but the house, honestly, I cannot tell you how upside down we are. I've got everything that was in my kitchen is elsewhere. The fridge and the freezer are in here, which means that I have about 4 square feet around me. I can't spin my chair round. I've got a wheelie chair. I can't spin round in it. Every single thing I need to reach for my classes or for my preparation or for any of my crafting actually is underneath something that belongs somewhere else in the house. So I've got half the boxes out of the kitchen in here. I've got kitchen appliances. I've got, oh, you know, all that stuff you have out in the kitchen, you know, the plants, the bits and pieces, the memo pad, oh, all kinds of things, all kinds of things. I've got the contents of my kitchen cookery bookshelf, which I thought was about 20 books, but it turns out it's more like 8 large boxes of books. Those are all somewhere else. Our lounge has got the dining table and 6 chairs and a large cabinet in it, as well as an awful lot of other stuff out of the kitchen, as well as a whole load of my daughter's stuff, which she will be coming to collect. So honestly, the house, I can't tell you how hard it is to work in at the moment. And it just took me forever to get my stuff out for today. So anyway, that is a very long-winded explanation to explain why I started late. Let me give you a few new bits of Stampin' Up news, and then I'm actually going to do some crafting, which is what you've come for, isn't it? So we're getting to the end of September. It's October tomorrow, isn't it? And usually with a new month, we get new deals, new products, new something from Stampin' Up, and they've knocked the ball out of the park this time. They've given us a whole load of things. So first of all, something I'm very excited about, tomorrow is World Card Making Day. There are events all over the place for World Card Making Day, and Stampin' Up for the first time are producing a global event. It's free to attend, it's online, so you can do it in your PJs. You don't have to go anywhere, and if the weather's like it's supposed to be, you won't want to. And if you can't join it live, then you will be able to watch a recording, a replay of it until the 18th of October, so almost 3 weeks to watch it. I will be sending out in my newsletter the link of how to actually join in, and I've also put it as an event on my Facebook page, so the link is there. All you have to do is have a look at that link and everything is there for you. Before the event starts, the event is tomorrow afternoon if you're in the UK on UK time. Before the event, you can have a look there, you can see the projects we'll be doing, and there are instructions, so you could print off a copy of the instructions if that will be helpful to you. There are cutting lists for everything that you're going to need, and there is a list of all the products that the people demonstrating and teaching the projects will be using. Now, I haven't got everything they're using, so I'm just going to use what I have got. You can substitute stamps, you can substitute different papers, you can substitute different colours of card, and the measurements will pretty much all still work. So I'm not worried about that, and you shouldn't be either. I think it's going to be fantastic fun to be together with Stampin' Up staff and demonstrators and all of you, people from all over the world, crafting together to do something that we enjoy, just to celebrate really crafting. So I encourage you to do that. It's 1 to 4 p.m. UK time, but there are other English speaking sessions at different times. And if you have a look at the link, either if you get my newsletter, it'll be there, or you can have a look on my Facebook page in the events, or you can go to stampinup.uk and the information is there as well. So have a look before tomorrow if you can. The information is there. Join in tomorrow afternoon. There's a button you have to click to say join the event, and you can also click on the tab that says video on demand after the event and watch it there. Just a note that if you scroll down the front page of that, you can click a button which says about putting it in your own time zone. So click on that and then select the one that says London/Edinburgh, and then the times on the agenda will change to British summertime, which makes a lot more sense to us. So that's World Card Making Day. That's tomorrow, 1st of October. There are going to be 2 new kits available from Tuesday next week, which are really exciting ones. The first one is something which is great for everybody who sends cards, but also would make an amazing Christmas gift, and that is a birthday book with cards. So it's going to be one of those books where you can store your finished cards, you can make a note of everybody's birthday dates, and the kit also comes with some cards that you can add embellishments to and include in your book. So it's a really nice gift for somebody or even for yourself. So that will be available from Tuesday. And the other kit is a Christmas tag kit. Christmas tags can be completed so quickly, and if you're short of time but you want to make something for Christmas, then a tag kit is a really good idea. Everything in there is ready for you, so they're quick to put together. But they're really pretty ones with detailing on them. They don't just look like something you've knocked out in 5 minutes. If you like to craft with young people, it would be a really nice kit to get to craft with them as well. So you'll be able to see it on my website, and in a minute when I put the camera down, my website is noted there for you. Also starting on Tuesday next week, we've got a really, really amazing offer. If you would like to join Stampin' Up. I talk about this quite a lot. It's always a great deal to join Stampin' Up. And at the moment, when we're all trying really hard to get the best value we can from everything we spend, joining Stampin' Up seems like a good idea to me. Once you have joined, you get at least 20% off every single order you place. So that's a huge saving for a start. And if you join from the 4th to the 31st of October, then you can choose £154 worth of Stampin' Up products, whatever you like, anything current, and you will only pay £99. So that's £55 worth of stuff for free. It's amazing. As well as the discount, there's all sorts of other benefits to being a demonstrator, and I'd be really happy to chat with you about it, either on the phone or by email. So get in touch with me if you would like to know more, or if that's all you need to know and you're thinking, where can I sign on the dotted line? Then if you go to my website and click on the Join tab, then it's a very simple online process. I would love to have you join me. I got together on Wednesday evening with some of my team. We crafted together, we had cake, we chatted. It was just so nice. I also do online sessions for my team as well. So I encourage you to find out a little bit more about that, and certainly it's a really, really good deal at the moment. And then finally, just very quickly, if you have friends or family in Belgium or Ireland, Stampin' Up is launching there on Tuesday as well. So it's all happening on Tuesday. Okay. Right, I'm going to turn the camera down. Let me find something to cover you over. I'll try and keep talking as I do, so you know that I'm still here. And we'll get into the crafting. I do just need to, let's just reverse the camera so everything is not upside down. Straight. I'll sort out the wires in a minute. Let's just see if you can see what I want you to be able to see. Well, the other thing I didn't tell you about everything that's in my craft room is that I've had to unplug the fridge and the freezer to run this, because although I've got 2 extension leads in, they were not reaching far enough. So I must remember to plug the fridge and freezer in when I finish, otherwise we're going to have a disaster, aren't we? So try and remind me. Pop a comment and say plug in the fridge and freezer. All right, let me get rid of this microphone cable. You can see my website there. There's also my email address if you want to get hold of me by email. Now, if you saw my Facebook event, you will know the measurements and everything else of the things that I'm going to be using today. So the whole idea of this was to show you how flexible a few pieces of card and paper can be, how many things you can do with them, and how simple it can be to create quite a few cards that are different to each other but have the same measurements, which simplifies the cutting. I've just put an extra light on to see if I can get rid of some of the shadowing. I know you've got a shadow from my cable there. I'm hoping that's not too bad. If you're watching live, let me know whether that's all okay. So let me put down first of all the measurements. If you've seen my event on Facebook, you will have had the measurements from there. But these are the measurements I'm using. I've tried to type them out neatly for you and put them in a large font, so you can always take a screenshot at this point and then come back to it. So I've got 3 cards to show you which use the same pieces. I'm using different materials for each card, different colours, different patterns, and I'm arranging things slightly differently, but the measurements are the same. All right, well, let's start off with the first one. I'm using the Abigail Rose suite for this, which is quite new to me. I've only just got this. If you need the measurements back, let me know. So I'm using the Cottage Rose stamp set. just for a flower inside. I haven't put a lot of stamping on this card. And the, oops, I've moved it too soon, the Happy Birthday, which is a really nice narrow one. So if you want just a little sentiment strip, this is great for that. And let me bring back the measurement sheet actually, and I'll show you what I have, what is what piece. All right, so my card base is 8 inches by 5 3/4. Scored landscape, so that's with the long edge at the top. I've scored it at 4 inches, and this is Petal Pink, which is a slightly salmon pink. I didn't much like it at first, but it has really grown on me over the years. My contrast card, which is Early Espresso, is 5.5 inches by 3 3/4 inches, and that's one of my standard card layers. If you saw my session a few weeks ago on layering, then this is one of my go-to sizes. I've then got a piece of patterned paper. Now you could use card, you could use embossed card, you could use anything you like for this. But I've used some of the Abigail Rose patterned paper. And this is just 1/8 of an inch smaller. Now I could have gone down by 1/4 of an inch, but I really like when I have a dark border for it to be very narrow. So I've only gone down by 1/8 of an inch smaller rather than 1/4 of an inch smaller. And this is like a vintage ledger pattern. It's very pretty. Hoping you can see that. There's always a long delay before I can see what you can see. There we go. I always hold everything too far towards me. That's better, I think. So that's that. Then I've got another piece of patterned paper. I could have used card. I could have used embossed card. I could have used foil or glimmer paper. And this one is 2 inches by 5 3/8 of an inch. So it's the same height as this piece, but it's not as wide. And I've used some more paper from the Abigail Rose pack. This has got some really pretty flowers. Sometimes I think they're tulips, sometimes I think they're crocuses. So let me know what you think they are, but they are pretty. Then I've got a punched or die cut circle, I've said. So I have a punched circle here. And I've punched it using the stylish shape, so it has a stitched edging to it. And then I have embossed it using the, now what's this called? I'm going to have to look this up. My mind's gone completely blank. It's something to do with posies, I'm sure. Give me a second, let me find it. Painted Posies. It's on page 177 of the annual catalogue. Painted Posies, embossing folder. And the flowers on there, the shapes are reminiscent of the ones on my paper. And then I've just knocked on the floor my little die cut shape. I'll show you my one that I've pre-stamped. It's quite tricky to be sure you're stamping straight and in the middle on a tiny die cut. So I pre-stamped one. I was going to show you a blank one. This is from the Stitched Rectangle set. For the proportions on this card, I've put down ideally 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch by about 2.5 inches. But you can cut it to fit your sentiments. You know, these measurements are not set in absolutely in stone. You can cut it by hand, or you can do as I've done and a die cut. And then I've chosen to use an insert, which is 5.5 by 3 3/4 of an inch. And I've picked very vanilla because the paper features vanilla rather than white. So those are all my pieces. I'm going to start putting the card together. And mostly for this one, it's a stick everything in place job. So I'm going to start off with my paper, and I really do like to use this multi-purpose liquid adhesive. Some people call it Tombow, that's the brand, because although it grabs really quickly, because it's liquid, you do have a moment and you can just slide your layer you're gluing down to get your borders absolutely even. And then I'm going to pop that on my card front. And again, I can slide that to get my borders even. Then I'm going to lay down my patterned paper. Handily, I've got the columns on this ledger paper marked, so that will help me keep this straight. There we are. And I've got my die cut circle, and I'm going to pop my sentiment somewhere like that. And I'm just looking at this and thinking, what am I going to do about any dimensionals? I think I'm going to stick this flat and put the sentiment on dimensionals. I always put a little bit more glue on an embossed piece, because the pieces which on the front are embossed are debossed on the back, and so there's no contact with those areas with the glue onto your card. So I put a little bit of extra on there to compensate. Now I could put this in all kinds of places. I'm going to put it slightly down from the middle and slightly towards the left hand side, because that pleases my eye, but there is no right or wrong on this. And then I'm going to pull in some dimensionals. Now if I lay this sentiment here, most of my sentiment is on top of a piece of card, a piece of paper, another piece of paper, another piece of card, and then some raised embossing on the card. But the little bit of it that sticks over the edge here is on fewer layers, because it's not on this, which is actually quite deep. So what I'm going to do is pop a dimensional on this end, just to make up that extra thickness, and then put ordinary glue on the rest of it. So if you're putting on an element onto your card which goes over layers which are thicker in some places than in others, just consider where you need dimensionals and where you don't. So this isn't totally flat and horizontal, but it's pretty good. There we are. That's my card front done. So once you've cut these, this can come together very, very quickly. I'm just going to stamp my insert, and let me see, somewhere here I have another happy birthday stamp which I'm going to pop inside. I think it's in this bucket here. I hope it's in this bucket here. No, it's not. Must be in the other one. Yes, there we are. Oh, not that one. I know it's in here somewhere. There we are. So this is from Celebrating You. It's this one here. And I just thought this is brilliant for the front, but it's just a little bit small for the inside, so I thought I'd change things up a bit and put a different sentiment inside. I haven't checked that this is straight. I always check my sentiments before I stamp on my projects. So I put them on the block, then I line up the bottom of the block with one of the lines on my grid paper, so I know the block is straight, and then I check to see if my sentiment is sitting straight, and actually it looks pretty good. So I'm just going to stamp this. I'm using early espresso ink, and I'm again using the grid paper to make sure that my insert is straight, so that my stamping ends up straight too. And then let's just, oh, I was going to stick it on the corner, but you know, I think I might just stamp a little border along the bottom. Just repeat stamp this a little bit. That's quite sweet, I think. So that's my insert. There's a lot of really fine detail on here. I hope I'm showing that to you. I'll just wait for everything to catch up. Yeah, beautiful. I haven't used this set very much. I think I said it's quite new to me, but it's absolutely gorgeous. The dies that come with it are amazing. They cut out some of the paper patterns, and they also will cut out a card layer, so when you lay it over some of the patterned paper, the aperture you've just cut in the card actually allows the patterned paper underneath to show through. So there is a flower design, and each individual flower has its own little aperture cut using one of the dies. They're beautiful. So there we are. That is my first card design using all these pieces and parts. I'm just going to fiddle with that light and see if I can reduce the shadowing just a little bit. Let's see if that's any better. I'm not sure that it is actually. Let's try the other side. No, I don't think it is. I think I'm going to stick with it where it was. Or I'm going to quickly clean these stamps. And then we'll move on to card number 2, which of course uses pieces that are exactly the same size, but we're going to make a different looking card. And I thought I'd go for something that was a little bit more masculine for the next card. Most people who come to my classes and who I talk to, and in fact me as well, find masculine cards are either a little bit harder to make or maybe just not so much fun to make. I mean, I love a good floral myself, but I'm less interested in doing, oh, I don't know, a train or something like that. All right, so let's put that one aside. We'll bring that one in at the end. And I've got some different pieces here. I am using early espresso again. It's a really useful brown. But I'm using some greens with it. And I will bring back the measurement sheet. This time I've used the other card base size that I put in the measurements here. So this is 11.5 inches by 4 inches, and I'm making a landscape card. I've scored it at 5 3/4 inches. So there we are. Now, if you like, let me just use this one as an example. If you want a card that is sitting this way, landscape rather than portrait, you can use the same kind of card base I used here and just stand it up like that. But I do find if it's a birthday card, for instance, that's going to be stood up on the mantelpiece for a few days, over time, they just tend to kind of sag a little bit sadly and end up like that. So if I want to make a landscape card, I tend to start off with my card cut this way, and then it will sit like that, and it will just stay like that, you know, forever. It's not going to start sagging. So my contrast card, actually, I've just realised is the same colour. It's early espresso, but that's okay. So that's my 5.5 by 3 3/4 inch piece. And I've got some patterned paper. This is from the pack called He's the Man. I don't know who's the man, but he's the man. And I picked this one because it's really cute. It's got a couple of little Airstream caravans on it, or in fact 3. I think there's 3 different kinds of Airstream caravan, plus a little VW camper van, and there's some campfires and some tents. I think this is lovely. I am absolutely, categorically not a camper. I can't bear camping or caravanning. I haven't done a lot of it, but what I did, I didn't enjoy, so I'm not doing it again. But I do like this paper. So that's my patterned paper. Then my next piece, I've used card this time, and I have embossed it. So this is soft succulent, this colour, and I've used the Fern 3D embossing folder on it. I'm hoping that you can see that gorgeous fern design on there. I don't think that's showing. I think it was showing up better down here actually. I've also got some little bits of, looks like bits of vellum or something on it. I was cutting vellum earlier. I think I've got some bits on it. Let's get rid of those. So that's my layer, and that's going to go across here. Not quite sure where yet. Might go in the middle, I might go lower down. Then I have a piece of basic white card, which I die cut using the layering circles dies. And this measures about, it's just under 2 3/4 inches in diameter. So I've said about 3 inches here. It's the, not the largest, but the next to largest circle in that pack. And then I have cut a strip for the sentiment, 3/4 of an inch by 2.5 inches. But I think what I'm actually going to do is stamp on this and then cut it down to size, because that's a much easier way of stamping a sentiment. So let's get started with this one then. I'm going to do what I did before, which is to stick my paper to the card layer and then put all that onto the card base. Hoping you can see me. I'm going to have to get my other light out. I think it is so dark outside. There's black clouds streaking across the sky in the wind, and it's raining a lot. It's very dark. It feels like it's about 6 o'clock at night from the light levels. So I'm just sliding that again. There we are. Get those level. I'm going to glue that to my card base. And now I'm going to decide what to do with this card layer. I like the idea of having it a little bit down from the middle, although I'd quite like to show that camper van. Maybe like that. I think I'll do my stamping and then I'll make a final decision. I'm just going to turn that light off and just see if that helps with the shadowing at all. Let me put it back on. Worse shadows, aren't there, when the light's on? Yeah, okay, I'll turn it off. If things get really dim, tell me and I will put it back on. All right, and I have an Evening Evergreen ink pad here. This is a dark green and it's a slightly blue green, which will work nicely with this, which is a lighter blue green. And I pulled out my Campology stamp set. So for somebody that doesn't like camping, I do like I like camping images. I just don't want to have to go into the great outdoors and sleep on the ground with sticks and creepy crawlies under my bed. But I'm going to use this little tent image, and I'm also going to use these trees and stamp on this white circle. So somewhere on my desk, there we are, I've got my, this is soft succulent, so this is the same colour as the card. So I'm going to stamp the trees in Evening Evergreen. So I've got those here. Now I won't get them all on that piece of card. I think I might just use those taller images and just have them over to one side. And I might, I'm going to try it out, I might stamp this off first. Let's see how dark this is going to be. So that's stamped once. Then if I re-stamp it without re-inking, that's paler. No, I think that's going to be fine. It's quite an open stamp. What I didn't want was for this dark green ink to dominate my card. All right, so I'm going to aim to get my trees towards the left here, and I'd like to get the top of that tallest tree on. I won't get the bottoms, but I think that's okay. Let's see. I can always turn it over and stamp on the other side if I don't like it. So there are my trees. As most of you know, I live in the New Forest. We have a lot of conifers here, and this reminds me a little bit of a Scots pine in the way that the branches have broken off and there are no needles down there at the bottom. Right, so now let's bring in, do you know, I was going to bring in soft succulent, but I think I'm going to stamp this tent in early espresso instead. I think I'm going to like that better, because on my paper it's early espresso. It's also just a little bit darker. Let me just do a test stamp and see. Yeah, that's going to be good. So this is a little tent. And you know, I'm looking at that now, I think I don't like those trees. So let's turn it over. I do want the bottoms of the trees. So let's do it again. Fortunately, every piece of card has an emergency side. So if you make a mistake or do something you don't actually like as much as you thought you did, you can just use the emergency side. There we are. Yeah, that's better. Right, so here's my tent. And I think what I may end up doing is putting my sentiment across there. I've got a kind of a natural gap that's appeared there. So let's just have a look at this with that in mind. So I do this all the time. I just play around with placement until I get something that works for me. So I'm going to have this extending towards the right. So I'm going to have my circle slightly to the left of center just to balance things out. Right, so that's got that decided, and I am actually going to put this strip in the middle rather than down towards the bottom, because I don't want to hide some of the details on the paper that are down towards the bottom. So I'm only doing this by eye. You could measure, but I do most of my crafting by eye in terms of sticking things down. All right, so that's my embossed paper. And I think this is a dimensionals moment. What have I done with those? I know they're on my desk somewhere. I have no idea where. Now, I only just had them, didn't I? There they are. Could you see them? Were you shouting at me there? By your left hand, Sally. Let's stick a few of these down. Let me know what you're doing this weekend. It's very quiet out there this afternoon. Nobody's saying anything. Now, I was supposed to be putting the fridge and the freezer back in the kitchen, which I was extremely excited about, but it's not going to happen because the guy who has replaced our kitchen floor has got to come back next week and do the edges. And whilst we can put the table and chairs back, where the fridge and freezer go is against the wall, and he needs to do those edges. And given that it was about as much as my husband and my son could do to actually move them in the first place, despite the fact that they're supposed to have little kind of wheels on them, they do not want to have to move them in and then move them out again next week. So I'm going to have to put up with everything in here probably until next weekend, but we'll see. They might manage to move things in the evening. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stamp on this. I'll give it a go. But if it goes horribly wrong, I'm just going to stamp it the way that I teach quite often, which is to stamp it on a bigger piece and then trim it down. Actually, that's all right. I'm going to go with that. I'm not going to do anything else. I expect on the next one I will stamp it and then cut it down. So I'm going to pop this here, and I'm going to pop dimensionals on that because the piece underneath is raised and the end that's going off here will be sloping downwards if I don't raise it up on dimensionals as well. I need another sheet of these, don't I? Ooh, and look what I've done. I've put dimensionals on there. I don't actually want them on that end. Let's just take those off. I just want glue on there because I've already got dimensionals on my circle. So let's get rid of those. And yes, look, I've torn the back of my piece of card, but that's okay because it's the back. Nobody's going to know that's there. They usually come off quite cleanly, but I think I was in a bit of a hurry. Just check where I have and haven't got a dimensional on there. There we are. That's better. So that's my card front. And I like that. For a non-camper, I like my camping card. All right, so here is my insert. So this is 5.5 by 3 3/4, exactly as before. and I'm just going to stamp it inside, and I am going to use that same happy birthday. So it's the same one I used before. It's from the Celebrating You stamp set. And then I'm going to stamp that little tent because it is very cute. I like to put an insert in my cards because if I mess up the stamping and I've done it on a separate piece, I can just either turn it over or do it on a new piece of card. If I stamp on the actual inside of my card base and I've got a beautiful front and then I mess up the inside, I shall be sad. So that's my inside and my card front. That's card number 2. All right, let's quickly clean these stamps off. I say it every week, I know, but honestly I am such a messy crafter. I've got ink all over my hands already, and I know that if I leave inky stamps on the table, I don't want to put them ink side down because I'll just make my table inky and then that will transfer onto something else. And if I leave them inky side up, then I will inevitably either lay my arm across there and get ink all over my sleeve, or I will lean in it and get ink all over some other part of me. I did actually teach a class and I leant over the table wearing a white t-shirt and got happy birthday stamped onto me, which wasn't great. It did wash out. The good thing about our inks is that they are, unless you pick the one permanent one, the black stays on, the others are all washable. These are all washable, and it did wash out, but I felt like a bit of a fool for the rest of the class. It wasn't even my birthday. All right, now I know I said I wasn't doing Christmas until October, but you know, sometimes we bend the rules, don't we? And it's my rule, so I decided to bend it and do a Christmas one to finish with. I'm also making a lot of noise. Let's move this a little bit closer. Okay. So I'm doing a snowflake stamp. Snowflake card even with snowflake stamps. This is the Joyful Flurry set. It's got some really pretty snowflakes in it. It's got a little snowstorm one here and some really nice words. Joyful wishes, let it snow, happy Christmas, and then sending you all the best this new year, and it's a season of magic and wonder. And the dies that come with this are gorgeous. There are some label dies, there are dies that cut the snowflakes out, and there are also some unusual dies which cut the detail of the snowflake but do not cut the snowflake outline, so that you can almost make like a background and you can pull up the little pieces that make up the detail on the snowflakes without the whole thing coming out of your card. So they're really nice. You'll be seeing those as we go through towards Christmas, I'm sure. All right, so let's have a look at the pieces. Now, I have slightly bent my self-imposed rule again. Not only am I doing a Christmas card, but I have slightly changed some of the layers on the one that I'm actually going to demonstrate. But I will show you first of all with the pieces that I have as if they were the previous ones. I hope that'll make sense as I do it. I don't think it makes sense now I listen to myself, but so here's my card base. 8 inches by 5 3/4, scored landscape at 4 inches. Here I've got some of the texture chic paper. I'm just going to lay this down, and yes, it's in 2, but it would be one piece, 5 3/8 by 3 and 5 Now I haven't got a contrast piece this time, just to make things a bit different. This paper is beautiful. The pack of paper works for all 4 seasons. There are 6 different designs of paper in there, and one side of them has got gold foiling on it. So this is the other side, which is beautiful. It's like a distressed tile effect. And then the other side, one of the patterns has snowflakes, one has autumn leaves, one has blossom, and one has flowers. More, you know, brighter flowers for sort of for summer. Another has seashells, and I can't remember what the other one has. I think the other one is, oh, it's like a board, a floorboard design. So it's really versatile. You can make cards all year round with that. So I've picked the snowflake design. So that's my patterned paper. I haven't used that layer. Then my strip here, I've actually used some of the snowflake vellum, and again I've cut this in 2. I'll explain that in a minute, but if I hadn't cut it in 2, let me just lay that down as if it was one piece. There we are. Now this is quite an opaque vellum with a slight iridescence to it, and this has got like a snowstorm effect, and these are actually raised. I can't let you feel it through the camera, but these are made of flock or velvet, if you like velvet paper snowflakes. And the pack with the snowflake vellum in, it's in the autumn and winter catalogue. So you've got a sheet of this with the flocked circles. You've got another one with the same pattern, but it's in a beautiful iridescent silver instead of the flock. And then the other sheets, one is a scattered snowflake pattern, and again you have one in white flock and one in the silver iridescent. And the final pattern is snowflakes again, but they're more orderly, they're kind of in rows. And again you have the one pattern of those in the flocks and one page in the iridescent silver. Beautiful. So anyway, that's this, 2 by 5 3/8. Then I've got my circle here. I've used the same layering circles dies for this, and I've cut this from the snowy white velvet paper, and then I have embossed it, and I'll tell you the name of the embossing folder in just a second. I'm hoping you can see that. I can't tell until my iPad catches up. No, yes, just you can there. I think well, actually where the shadow is sort of helping a little bit. I think it shows better if I hold it further away. And what I'll do is I'll put something dark inside the embossing folder, which I think will show the pattern up much better. There you are. So this is velvet paper, so it's the same feel. Let me hold it sideways and maybe I can get it all in quite close up. Yeah, there we go. So the velvet paper has the same feel as the vellum I'm using, and it embosses absolutely beautifully, and it feels gorgeous. It's so strokeable. Now that embossing folder is in the annual catalogue, and I'm not very good at remembering the names on these. Again, it's quite new to me and I haven't got the names stuck in my head yet, but I will tell you what it's called. It's the Wintry 3D. There's 2 in the folder. One has snowflakes and one has pine branches. So it's on page 177, the Wintry 3D embossing folders, 2 in a pack. So I used the snowflake one. So that's my punched or die cut circle, and I haven't actually cut myself a sentiment strip. I've just got a piece of card which I will trim to size once I've stamped, and then I've got my insert. However, I said I was going to do something slightly different on this, just to show you that there's yet another variation. So here is my card base, 8 by 5 3/4. And instead of scoring it landscape at 4 inches, I've scored it at 2 inches and 6 inches. Now this is going to give me a gatefold card. So one where both sides fold into the middle. And I'm just going to do that. So let me fold it there. I know it's hard to see where the score lines are on a dark card. So that's my first one. Hopefully you can see that's folded in, and then this side is going to come in to meet that. Now I could just fold it on that score line, but what I like to try and do is to do the second score line quite gently, so I'm a little bit more flexible about where it's going to fold. Bend this in and then butt this second side right up against the first one before it properly folds, and then use my bone folder just to finalize that score line, and that way this will meet perfectly in the middle with no gap. Like that. I'm hoping you can see that. Let me pop the insert in so there's something contrasting. There we are, that's better. So that's my card base. Now, I cut my patterned paper as one piece here, just like this measurement, and then I thought, hang on a minute, I bet I could do a gatefold card. So I would actually have been better to have used this measurement, but I'd already used this and I didn't want to just discard this and cut another piece of paper. So actually, when I cut these pieces in half, they were a bit of a funny measurement, which I will tell you in a minute, just in case you want yours to be identical to mine. But I would have done better to have cut my paper to this measurement, because then it would have been, when I cut it in half, let's put that on there, cut in half, I'd have had them 5.5 inches tall by, where are we, 1.5 inches is half of 3, and 3/4 of an inch is 3/8, so it'd be 1 7/8, I think. Let me just quickly do some maths. Maths was my worst subject at school. That gives me 14/8, which is 1, 2, 3, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's right. 5 by 1 7/8. That's just the halfway mark. Down there, 1 7/8. However, I had already cut my paper to this, so I actually had some slightly more fiendish measurements to do. So half of 5 3/8, sorry, it was half of that one, so the height is the same, which is 5 3/8 of an inch, but then when I cut it in half, I had to cut it in half at the 1 13/16 of an inch mark. No, if you're holding up your hands in horror, that's fine. Just cut it that size. However, I will just show you, if I can get this trimmer in and find something to point with. Can I find my little piercing tool? Yes, I can. So up here, try and get this underneath and in focus on. I'm just going to wait for my iPad to catch up so I can see what you can see. I can bring that a little bit closer, I think. Again, I'm waiting for the catch up, and you've got some reflection on that. So this isn't brilliant, is it? But let's just try. Okay, so this is the an inch mark here, so it's actually the 2-inch mark, just because that's where my hand is. So that's 1/2 inch, and then that's our next full inch. But an inch can divide into half, or it can divide into quarters, which are the next largest marks. So that's 1/4, 1/2, 3/4. Or it can divide into 8ths, which are the next longest marks. So that's 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8. Or you can halve the 8ths and make them 16ths. So there are 16 of these in an inch, and they are the smallest marks. So when I cut that to 1 13/16, let's just lift this up and I can show you the 1 inch. So here is 1 inch. And again, I'm just waiting for my iPad to catch up and make sure that you can see. What did I say? I've forgotten the measurement. 1 13/16. So if I go to 1/2 inch, half of 16 is 8. So I know that is 8/16. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13/16. That's where that is. Now, if I'm losing you, don't worry. You do not have to cut like that. I only did it so I didn't waste this piece of paper. But I've cut that. I also shortened my card base because I had narrower borders on the side than I did at the top. And just for the sake of completeness, I will tell you that I cut my long narrow strip of card into 2, which were 1 inch by 5 3/8 of an inch. So that was an easy one. Okay, let's set that aside and actually make the card. But I'm essentially using the same materials. I've got the same size card base as the first card I made. I've just scored it in different places at 2 and at 6 instead of at 4 inches. If we pretend that these are the same size as the first layer measurement I've given you on there, then this is exactly the same size, it's just been cut in half. And my narrow strip is exactly the same size as on the measurements, cut in half. And I've cut them in half simply because I've divided my card front in half. So I've got half on here and half on here. I'm hoping that's clear. Now, let me show you a trick with vellum. If you've ever used vellum in your card making, you will know that because it's transparent, your glue shows through. So I've got a bit of sponge here. We used to actually have these sponges in the catalogue for inking with, but now we have the ink blending brushes. We don't have the sponges, but I'm just going to cut a wedge off this. However, you could use a sponge dauber, and you can find those in the catalogue. So I'm going to squeeze out some of my multi-purpose glue onto my craft sheet. I'm putting it on here because when the glue has dried, I'll just be able to roll it off and clean up that way. Because it's a rubber-based glue, it will just roll off, but you could always put it on a piece of scrap card or something like that. And then I'm going to lay down my vellum face down, pick up the glue on my sponge, and I'm just going to dab up and down, and this is going to put a thin layer of this glue all over the vellum, which won't show when I stick it down. Now, if I'd done what I normally do when I'm gluing, which is do a little line all round the way round the edges, then that line would show when I glued my vellum down, but this won't. This looks too long, doesn't it? Oh no, it's not, it's fine. I'm just putting it in the wrong place. There we are. It's perfect. Thank goodness for that. Now I'll lift that up. I don't know if you'll be able to see very well or not, but I can see that the glue is completely invisible on that. And I can still see the snowflake design under the vellum. So I'm just going to do the same with my other piece of vellum. I'm laying it on a clean piece of the mat. A little bit more glue. And this is so quick and gives you such a good result. And because this glue is rubber based, it isn't going to make the vellum curl. If you use something like PVA, there's quite a lot of glues out there which come in these applicators with really fine nozzles, which in theory are lovely, but the glues are water based, and that causes your paper or your vellum and even your card to buckle. So the fact that this glue is rubber based means that it's not going to do that. So that's gone down beautifully flat. I don't know if this first, where I had the excess going off the edge, yeah. So I can just roll that dried glue off. It just comes off in like little, almost looks like when you erase a pencil mark, those kind of little scrapey bits. So I'll do that later on to clear up. Let's put that right out of the way so I don't get glue on anything else. So that's got my vellum down. And then I'm going to put my circle across the front here. And you're probably thinking, isn't that going to glue the card shut? Well, yes it is, if I don't remember to only put glue on half of it. So I'm just going to put glue on this half, but not on that half. And I think this calls for some more dimensionals. I've got another sheet here. I don't know if you can hear the rain. It's absolutely falling down out there. I mean, it's not that we don't need the rain, even though we've had some rain, but it was such a dry summer. When I drive across the forest, all the places where the water normally sits are still definitely not full up at all. Right, so I'm just looking at this and working out where I want to put my dimensionals. How do I want this to sit? I think roughly like that. So this side is going to be glued. And if I imagine a line down the middle, the right hand side of that line is not going to be glued. And this card's going to be opened quite a few times, so I'm going to make sure that I put enough dimensionals on there that nothing's going to come unstuck. And I've put something in the middle as well to support the centre of this, so it will stay looking nice, even going through the post and even being opened and shut a few times. So I'll just make sure that I've got that imaginary line going vertical again. And again, I'm just tipping it up, checking underneath that that's going to be fine. And make sure that I've got this, oops, in the middle of my card front. There we are. Ooh, and that's just a look, that's just a little bit too far over, so let's just gently remove that one, because that's just a little bit too far over. And if you roll these carefully, they don't destroy whatever it is they've been stuck to. There we are. And I can just snip that off. There's a little bit of it that's still underneath and a little bit here. So just like I did on my craft sheet, actually, that glue is just rolling off. There we are, that's better. So now I can open this easily. And then my sentiment, I'm going to use the Let It Snow. And I'm going to use Evening Evergreen ink again, which is the colour of my card base. So not a traditional colour for snowflakes, but I think it works nicely here. Again, let me make sure I've got that straight on my block. Yeah, pretty good. So now I'm going to stamp it at the bottom. So I've got more card than I need, but now I can just trim that off and get it exactly in the middle, or hopefully exactly in the middle. So let me let that down, so my blade will go through this track here. And I'm just looking at how much space I've got at the bottom, and I'm trying to cut it so the words are in the middle. There we go. And I'm going to trim this off a little bit. For a long time I cut flag ends in all my little banners like this, and I'm going through a phase at the moment of just cutting them straight. I'll probably go back to flag ends at some point, but not right now. There we go, Let It Snow. And I'm going to pop that there. And of course, again, I don't want to stick down this end, so I'm going to have most of this little sentiment strip on that circle just to support it. I can have a little bit over the end that isn't supported in any way, but if I have too much of it dangling, it's just going to get bent. So again, check where my glue is and just pop that down there. And then I'm going to pull out some rhinestones. I've overrun a little bit, but this is the last card and it's very nearly finished. I cut up my packs of rhinestones and sort them by size, simply because I find it easy when I'm preparing for classes. This is the medium-sized ones. And I'm going to pop them on to this velvet paper. So that's a medium one on the largest embossed snowflake. And then on the other two embossed snowflakes here, I'm just going to pop the smaller ones in. That just brings a little bit of sparkle in, because if you can't have some sparkle at Christmas, when can you? There we are. So that's my card front, and I've only got to do the insert and it's finished. Hoping you can see that. Again, I have to wait for several seconds before my iPad catches up. There we are. All right, so this is my insert. I'm going to stamp Joyful Wishes, which is from the same stamp set. So I've used Let It Snow, and let's do Joyful Wishes. And I haven't checked this is straight because it's a stamp that's actually slightly on the slant, so it's quite forgiving. And then I'm going to stamp a few little snowflakes on here using soft succulent ink, which is the same colour as I have on the paper. So that's a kind of a medium sized snowflake, and this is a little one. And I like to go off the edge with my stamping rather than have everything in with a white border around it. It just pleases my eye a little bit more. And I said to you, I'm a messy crafter. Look at that. I am so inky. All I've done is make 3 cards. How on earth have I done that? Pop my insert in. There we are. Now I'm just going to turn this paper over so you're not distracted by my calculations and my stamping and so forth that's on there. Let's just turn that over. I've left the blue tack on, but I think that will be all right. And let me show you the 3 cards we've made with the same measurements. So we've got 2 which are portrait cards, 1 which is a landscape, 1 for her, 1 for him, and 1 for Christmas. So do give this a go. Just pick your favourite stamp set or pick your favourite papers, build your card around that, use the same shapes. 3 cards that look very, very different, but the sizes of everything are exactly the same. The only difference is on my gatefold card here, where I scored the card base at 2 inches and 6 inches, and then I cut my front panels in half, but they started off the same size, so it's very easy to change things up that way. It's been lovely to craft with you this afternoon. I'm just going to turn the camera back up to say goodbye. And let me just take off the mirror image so I'm not upside down. I'm going to wish you a very good weekend. There we go, not too bad. Whatever the weather's doing, I hope you have fun. I really hope you will come and watch the World Card Making Day session tomorrow afternoon online, or that you will actually join and make some cards, or maybe do a bit of both. Maybe make one, watch the rest. I forgot to say to you, there's actually going to be a behind the scenes sneak kind of interview and discussion and show and tell partway through it, where we're going to see some new products that are coming up, and I'm thinking we're going to talk to some of the designers and really see how they set about putting these together, and how they decide what's going to go with what. So I think that's going to be really interesting as well. So I hope to see you then. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you next week at the same time, where what I'm going to be doing is an unboxing. I've got the new Christmas kit, which is called Warm and Cozy. I'm not good on names today. Warm and Cozy. So I've got one. It's still in the cellophane wrapping. I'm going to take it out, show you what's inside. I'm going to make up one of the cards as they suggest, and then I'm going to see what else I can do with it. So I'm looking forward to doing that with you next week. I'm planning to be here at 2 o'clock as usual, not the 2:15 session which we were today. It should be 2 o'clock next Friday. But I look forward to seeing you. Thanks so much for joining me. Bye-bye.